This is a YouTube channel dedicated to teaching the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And this is the last of the follow-up clips from episode 2, the drama of Genesis. So what we've been learning from the follow-up clips is about the patriarchs. The first patriarch was Abraham. Abraham exemplifies the father. He's the father of faith. Next is Isaac, the son of the promise. Then we have Jacob. Jacob is the deal maker, whom God later transforms into a source of blessing. Lastly, we have Joseph. Joseph is the dreamer of the bunch. Joseph's story picks up in Genesis chapter 37 and continues all the way to chapter 50, which is the conclusion of the book of Genesis. Joseph's story is really the longest running narrative within the book of Genesis. So we first see Joseph as a tender young man of 17 years of age. He is a pure young man. He is an honest young man. And he is the favored son of Jacob. His brothers, on the other hand, do not have such a high opinion of Joseph. In fact, his brothers hate Joseph. And this is repeated several times in Genesis chapter 37, how much his brothers hated him. And in fact, the more favor Joseph seems to acquire, the more his brothers actually hate it. And this is demonstrated in he begins to receive dreams. He receives 2 dreams, which he shares with his brothers. And then later shares his second dream also with his brothers and his father. Now, Joseph is also a naive young man. He seems to be completely oblivious to the drama, the conflict, and even the resentment and hatred that his brothers have toward him. So in the story, Jacob sends Joseph out to check up on his brothers. Jacob does not quite trust his other sons, but instead of following up on the boys himself, he sends Joseph in his stead. So we see also in Jacob a bit of passivity in his parenting, which also create additional conflict within the family. So Jacob sends Joseph. Joseph goes and looks for his brothers to follow up on them to see what they are up to. He kind of gets lost along the way, and a stranger redirects him to his brothers who are in Dothan at this time. And they see him coming from afar off. And they realize at this moment, maybe we can get rid of Joseph, that dreamer. They call him the dreamer. Let's see what happens to his dreams. We'll just put an end to him. They have so much hatred for Joseph that they are conspiring to kill him. So Joseph arrives. They strip him of his coat of many colors. They throw him into a cistern, and they're debating, well, what can we do with him? And they see these traders coming from afar off. They're slave traders, and they're like, well, he is our brother, and maybe we shouldn't kill him. What we'll do is we'll sell him into slavery, and we'll get some monetary reward, from this process. And then we'll lie to Dad and we'll tell him that Joseph was attacked and killed and eaten by some wild animal or animals. So they come up with this plot, they carry it out. Joseph is begging his brothers, and he is taken off into slavery. So then he ends up in Potiphar's house, and he does a phenomenal job taking care of Potiphar. Potiphar is a individual of standing within Egyptian culture, and Joseph takes care of everything. And then the Bible says the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in everything. So Potiphar doesn't even think about the needs of his household because Joseph just takes care of everything. Well, Joseph, we also find out, is a well-built young man. He's very handsome. And Potiphar's wife takes a liking to Joseph, and she attempts to seduce Joseph into a relationship, and Joseph avoids her. And in fact, she becomes very aggressive and comes after him, and he ends up fleeing Potiphar's wife and leaving his cloak behind. Joseph is a young man of absolute integrity. And she lies about Joseph and tells her husband that he attempted to assault me. And so Joseph is falsely accused. He has no standing because he is a slave. And Potiphar throws him into prison. So then Joseph's life, it doesn't seem like it can get any lower, and now he's in prison. And while in prison, the prison administrator takes notice of him and gives Joseph responsibility. And eventually, Joseph is virtually running the prison. And while in prison, two prisoners come in from Pharaoh's palace. They are the baker and the cupbearer. And they both have dreams. And Joseph interprets both of their dreams and tells them what the dreams mean and what's going to happen. Well, Joseph's dream interpretation comes to pass. And the one official who was the baker, he was hung just as Joseph had foretold. And then the cupbearer was restored to his royal position. And Joseph's like, remember me when you reach Pharaoh and get me out of this place. I helped you out. Please help me out. Well, the cupbearer forgets all about Joseph, and he goes back to his job as a royal official in Pharaoh's palace. Well, Pharaoh, in the course of time, begins to have a set of two disturbing dreams that rock Pharaoh to his very core. And there's no one to interpret the dreams. And the cupbearer remembers, hey, there was that Hebrew boy in prison that interpreted my dream for me. So the cupbearer tells Pharaoh about Joseph. Joseph then gets out of prison. They clean him up, and he goes before Pharaoh. Pharaoh tells him the two dreams that he had, and then Joseph proceeds to interpret the dreams. But before he actually interprets the dream, he makes it very clear that God is the one that provides the interpretation. And he also makes clear to Pharaoh that the two dreams are one and the same. And the reason why God gave Pharaoh two dreams is because God had firmly decided the matter in his mind. And he's letting Pharaoh know this is definitely going to happen and you need to prepare. So Joseph interprets the dream. It's 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And then Joseph not only interprets the dream, he tells Pharaoh, this is what you should do. You should take a fifth of the grain during the years of plenty and save it up so that when the 7 years of famine come, the land and the nation of Egypt will not be completely ruined. And Pharaoh is standing there, and he's stunned. The man has interpreted what God had planned to do. He has given him a strategy around the dream. Now all Pharaoh needs is a man who can execute this plan for him. And he's like, you're the man. You're the one that needs to be the administrator over this. So Pharaoh gives Joseph the authority as his right-hand man, his second in command. And he makes Joseph the administrator. And he says, no one will be above you except for me. And so Pharaoh pretty much puts him in charge of the entire country. So Joseph becomes the administrator of Egypt. His brothers eventually show up. They don't recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognizes them. And this whole interchange occurs. There's a reconciliation that happens between Joseph and his brothers. And Jacob's other sons have to come clean with the lie that they had told their father that Joseph is actually alive. And so all of the Israelites, there's 70 in all, they all move to Egypt, and there they stay. So what you see in the story of Joseph, you see this pattern, and this is a pattern that is repeated several times in the scriptures. You see this period of immersion in love. Like you see, Joseph is the most beloved son. That's kind of stage one of his life. Stage two is this stripping down, where he has almost nothing, no rights, no possessions. He's kind of at the mercy of others, and it's a humbling process. And he also learns about the world and the ways of the world and how things work. And he proves himself faithful even in the midst of this very difficult situation of being betrayed by his brothers, falsely accused. He walks through that into the third stage, where then he ultimately becomes the administrator of blessing for the nation Egypt. And then ultimately, all nations are coming to Egypt because they're the ones that have food during this severe famine, which appears to have affected most, if not all, of the known world at that time. And this is the story of Joseph. And Joseph says to his brothers eventually, after his father died, you meant to harm me, but God meant this for good, the saving of many lives. And he makes his brothers swear that they will carry out his last wishes. So as he's concluding his life, he's 110, and he gathers his brothers, and he's the second youngest, but he is going to precede them in death, because he is going to cast the vision of deliverance for the nation. So he tells his brothers about the Exodus that is going to occur 400 years in advance, and he tells them, when God shows up to deliver the nation, make a promise. You're going to make a promise, my brothers, on behalf of your descendants, to take my bones up out of Egypt. So Joseph literally makes his funeral and his bones a memorial or a reminder to the nation that God is going to ultimately deliver them. This is the kind of vision that Joseph had. So he precedes his brothers in death, and he casts that vision. This vision is also cast by Jacob. I'm going to pull my Bible up here real quick. Jacob also says, this is Genesis chapter 49, verse 18. And this is Jacob speaking. I look for your deliverance, O Lord. This is what Jacob says. I look for your deliverance, O Lord. This term, Lord, is Jehovah. This is actually the last time in the book of Genesis that the term Jehovah is used. And it's in reference to the deliverance of the nation Israel, which will come out of Egypt. So Jehovah is introduced in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. This is where we first see the term Jehovah, and that's in reference to God creating man. And now the last time Jehovah is used in Genesis is in reference to the deliverance of his chosen nation. So Joseph has a vision of the Exodus. Jacob alludes to it in his last words. And then Abraham also received a revelation of the Exodus. God tells Abraham that his people will be enslaved for 400 years and God will come to their aid and deliver them out. So Genesis sets the stage for the growth of the nation. So it starts out with Abraham, one man, then Isaac, then Jacob, then 12 sons. And then 12 sons turn into a group of 70. And Joseph is sent ahead to prepare the way to save the nation, Israel. This is the supernatural destiny that God works out through the tragedies and difficulties in Joseph's life. So they all go to Egypt and they settle in Goshen, and it's a place that is full of natural resources and pastures for the flocks to feed. It's a place for the nation to grow. So they go in as 70, and then we pick up the story in Exodus, and they come out as a nation of people about 400 years later. So next time we will go into the book of Exodus, and this is about the emancipation from Egypt and the power of God to deliver his people. So next time on the Breath of God, I look forward to explaining more of the story of the Exodus. Thank you for listening, and remember, his breath is our calling. Thank you.